Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on last week's presidential debate between President Biden and former President Trump is Brett Kingstone. Mr. Kingstone is an inventor, technology entrepreneur, award-winning real estate developer, and generous philanthropist. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Kingstone.
Welcome back.
Great Morty to be back. Baby, how are you?
That's Brett Kingstone. It's always a very special privilege and pleasure to have Mr. Kingstone on. His name is perfect. He's a king. I don't know what the stone is part of it, but he's really tremendous. He's a young man that I met he was probably just out of kindergarten. And I was so impressed with him. I raised him something like $6 million for his early stage startup. And I bet on the right jockey because he's turned out to be a real winner. He lived up to all the claims he made about the kind of company he's going to build and the kind of life he's going to lead as a consequence of earning all that money. So for me, it's delightful to have Mr. Kingstone on, although we rarely agree.
It's true. The only thing we agreed on is the business you took public, Morty.
So I can't wait till the hour is over so I can get rid of it.
You'll need a drink. You'll need a stiff drink, Morty.
Anyway, it's fun having him on, and he's very bright, and I hope he adds to our collective podcast. My audience is a major part of my joy because they send me such interesting insights, and even when they disagree with me, they help broaden my mind and add to my education. But before I get into the subjects of the week, which are generally, as life is, as news is, downer, depressing. There's wars, there's bad diseases, there's cancer, there's so many things to be forlorn about. And the only news that's ever appears is you never see a front page headline, Mr. Kingstone just graduated with a summa cum laude and is going on to Stanford University graduate school, and then afterwards he just received a big offer from Meta, that's Facebook, after he graduated. There's lots of good news, but nobody cares. It's the thing that makes news, to make the front page of the New York Times. People have given $100 million to universities, and maybe in the old days it did make the front page of the Times or other newspapers. Today it doesn't. You can't even be guaranteed that if you give $1 billion, it's going to make the front page. So the only way you could be sure to get on the front page of the New York Times, not even a murder or a serial murder gets the front page of the Times. I think that the only sure way is if you're a serial murderer and you refrigerate and then eat your victims. It's got to be so bad and so crazy, or it's got to be like where we send our young people to fight other young people to kill each other and maim each other. That makes the headlines instead of the good news. Good news is not news. So what I love about Brett is that he's always upbeat. He's always feeling good. He's always smiling. And when he smiles, look at his smile now.
Morty,
It
I'm
makes,
thinking of some good news I brought to you after we went public at your office. We won't talk about it on TV, but anyway.
tell me the truth. Doesn't it make you feel good to see somebody smile like he does and laugh like laugh? It's contagious, just like depression is contagious and crying is
That's
contagious.
true. True.
So before we start in the weekly or the current news, which is likely to depress you as it does depress everybody else in this
We'll
world.
try to make it fun, though, Morty. We'll try to make it fun. Okay?
Yeah. Look, the people that killed those Israelis that were at a concert October 7th, they said they had so much fun. One guy reported to his mother, I killed 7 Israelis and I chopped off one's head, and then he reported to his friend he raped the Israeli women. He said we jumped on those horses and it was terrible, but they were happy. But I want to my goal is to make everybody in this world happier, stop the wars and the killings of young people. It's outrageous. These same young people, if we didn't put them to war and give them the weapons in their hands to kill other young people, probably would be best friends with the person. They have nothing against the person they're shooting at or killing at. It's outrageous, and they're taking somebody's life or they're ruining somebody's family. The other person that they're attacking may have a young child, a wife at home that, or some woman he's engaged to, or I mean, it's just so wrong. It's so the more civilized we become, the more capable we become of killing more people quickly. It's
Well, Morty,
outrageous.
I don't think the young people in Israel could ever be friends with the young people who voted for, supported, or fought with Hamas. Hamas is dedicated to murder and destruction of Israel and the Israeli people. And unfortunately, that was a war we didn't have a choice to fight. We had to fight. And I also believe that, yes, the same people who were dancing in the streets after those women were raped and those young men were murdered, and elderly ladies and young children, some as young as several months old, went into being taken hostage. It shows those are the same people that danced in the streets when the 2 twin towers went down during 9/11. Those are people you can't negotiate with, and I think the Israelis had no choice but to fight. Perhaps we can look back at some wars like Vietnam if we negotiated with the president of Vietnam back then, who came to the United States and said, I want to be free of France, just like you were free of the British. And we could have negotiated an agreement rather than an invasion and a war. But with Hamas, Morty, I don't think Israel had a chance. They had no option.
I don't know how we got into that. I didn't
You brought
take,
it up.
I didn't take issue. I said
Yeah.
people are happy doing bad things, and it's
Yeah. Some people are. Yeah.
What do you mean some people are? We're the United States. We're the greatest country in the world, supposedly.
Yep.
We're responsible for more wars and more killings than any other country since the end of the Second World War. We had the Korean War, we had the Vietnam War, we had the Afghanistan War. We don't stop. you know, and there's no reason for it. We should outlaw wars. If we don't get along with the Palestinians, let's have debates. Let's have competitions. Uh,
You can't debate Hamas. There is no talking to Hamas. Yeah.
that's what's wrong with
Yeah.
the world. But we're not much better because if we don't have an enemy for a few weeks, we find a new enemy. It's outrageous. And our biggest export and most profitable, and the one that gets the most support and backing, is defense spending. You know what the
Well, it's actually, Morty, I think it's the oil industry, but right behind it would be the exports of technology and military weapons. But I agree with you. I think the war that we got involved in with Ukraine should have been settled if we had a president in his right mind. He would have met with Putin in Geneva and negotiated a settlement and a deal and told Zelensky, you have to agree to this. And Putin, say the same thing. You have to agree to this because on Zelensky's side, we're not going to give you the hundreds of billions you need if you don't accept this deal. And Putin, if you don't accept this deal and we have to defend Ukraine, we're going to spend hundreds of billions in weapons. Nobody negotiated this. They just allowed it to happen. And I think we have a failure of leadership right now in our country.
you put your finger on it.
Yep, I agree with you.
Diplomacy is what we need before we go to battle.
100% correct, Morty. War is a result of failed diplomacy.
We are motivated. The U.S. is motivated because we're the leading producers of weapons of destruction for the whole world. Everybody who's in a war is using our equipment.
Right.
And that's outrageous. And you know why that is? Because in all 50 states, every congressman comes back home and says, I just got whether they got a contractor or a subcontractor, they got enormous employment from.
It's called the military industrial complex. And by the way, Eisenhower, who was a general and a president, he warned us about that, Morty. You were on. Guess what, Morty? We agree again. It's the second time we've agreed within an hour on any podcast before. We're not fighting with each other. We agree with you. I agree with you.
Stop the show.
All right. Now let's talk about the main subject, about Biden and his talk. Now we'll start the fight.
To ask you, do you know what the Defense Department was called when I was young?
The War Department.
Right.
Right.
They figured out that's not a good name, that's hostile.
Right.
So they changed it to Defense Department.
Right.
Well, I would have appreciated if they had a Defense Department and an Offense Department. Because we make offensive weapons and we kill people and so forth. But you can't be against defense. If somebody says we should spend $1 billion for defense, nobody could be against it.
Right.
And every congressman and senator, no matter how big the budget is, wants to increase it because it helps their state and their employment and they come home with like they won the Nobel Prize when they get an award of more contracts. And I'd like to see
By
that.
the way, Alfred Nobel was the biggest producer of gunpowder on Earth. So it's funny that the Nobel Prize comes from someone who made all his money selling gunpowder to the rest of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, but at least, he developed dynamite. But at least he moved on to do good things. He awards.
Right. Yeah.
There's one thing to do bad things, and there's another things to.
No, he was a mensch.
Have money and do wonderful things.
So let's jump into our main subject. Morty, you and I agreed early on that we're going to let Leonard narrate the questions because he sounds like a CNN or Fox News anchor. Go ahead, Leonard.
Wait, we're going to stop for a second.
All right, Leonard.
I want to say, and you're a good example of this. I want to say before I launch our current events discussion that's bound to depress many of us. I like to start off by inspiring my audience, and hopefully I could do that for the whole world at some juncture, because I'd like to bring more happiness into the world as opposed to the suffering and aggravation and between peoples. So I'd like to give some suggestion of how to be happier for my audience, for all of you. And I especially recommend acquiring um,
Your book. Your book.
the, fall, the Fall of
Book
My
on
Young
happiness, Morty.
Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back.
Hey, move the book into the screen so I can see it, Morty. I want to see the copy again. I want
How
to
to,
see it.
how to
There
be
you go.
happy. At the bottom it says how to be happy.
Happiness guaranteed or your misery back. Love it.
Also, how to be happy no matter what. And it's 365 days of inspiration and humor to help make you happy. So it's every page, it's 365 pages. If you pick it up once a day and read that page, it's going to add to your happiness. But so far, I've had such great feedback from people. There's one CEO of a Fortune 500 company. He says, I give out thousands of gifts during the year, and I've never got so much positive feedback. Most of the times I get a thank you the following week, and in most cases I don't even get that much. But rarely do I get any follow-on during the subsequent 12 months. And in this case, people call me up and say, I really enjoy it. I'm using it. My family is sharing it with me. So I want you to get a hold of this book by hook or by crook. And not only that, I make it so enticing. And I know I could do this because so far nobody's taken me up on it. I on television, when they want you to try something or become a customer for one of their products, they say you can order it, you can try it, and if you're not happy with it, you can send me back the empty jar, or you can even keep the empty jar, or you can keep the book. Just send me back the purchase slip that you got at the purchase time, and tell me you're unhappy with it, and I will give you your money back. And my offer is that not only will I want you to have this so badly that I will not only give you your money back, but if you send me your purchase slip, I'll give you double your money back. As long as you don't send me 500 purchase slips, so you double your money every time you
buy a
spend.
book.
But anyway, the reason I could do that is because so far with that offer and with all the feedback that I get from people who bought it or got it as gifts and so forth, it's been phenomenal. So if, as a beginning, in trying to improve the whole world and make the whole world happier, I make this offer. I wish I could impact the whole world, but it's so sad that we set up something after the First World War called the League of Nations, and that failed. I don't remember precisely why it failed, but Europe went back to war again. Hitler came after the League of Nations.
And now we have the UN, who's equally as bad, Morty.
At the end of the Second World War, we thought we should, they thought the League of Nations was a good idea. And we worked with the Russians and even the British and even the countries that were our enemies during the war to try to make a better world. We set up the UN and try to make a better world. As you point out, the UN has turned out to be, in my book, a disaster because the head of human rights is often, each country gets a turn at being head of the human rights division of the UN. I don't know if Israel's ever gotten that appointment, maybe it has. But I know that Iran has gotten it, and Iraq has gotten it, and Hezbollah has gotten it. Every country that's gone to war and is the most obnoxious, dedicated to killing and maiming and crippling, has become human rights leader for a year, which is the biggest joke. And the United States is the biggest supporter. It's well-intentioned, but it's outrageous. So either we should restructure it in a way that it stops all wars. We should outlaw all wars, just as we've somehow successfully outlawed mines that are planted during the wars that kill people for forever after because they're left there and they're still powerful weapons of destruction. So there are ways to deal with that, and maybe the UN should have a military of its own that's run by the good graces of the healthy countries, the United States, England, and all the countries that are in favor of ending wars. And then if one country starts a war, I mean, if they have internal wars, we can't be as we tried to be, as we were always involved, the policemen of the world. If the people are having an internal war, we should try to help them diplomacy-wise, which you point out. I said just before the war Russia started with Ukraine, I pointed out to my grandchildren that Putin was saying, if you just don't invite Ukraine into the NATO, I won't attack Ukraine. So, maybe you can't trust Putin, and maybe it was wrong not to try. But I think the first effort you do is you go to Putin and you say, okay, we don't need NATO because we didn't need NATO. We have 27 countries in NATO. And not only that, it's even questionable if we're smart being there because all 27 countries are guaranteed if they're attacked, the United States will go to war on their behalf. So that doesn't sound like such a good contract that we're brought into wars by 27 different countries. So far, it's worked out fairly well, but we could have told Putin, but if you do that, because you can't trust Putin, just like you can't trust Chamberlain.
Or Biden.
Chamberlain, when he came back before the Second World War started, came back to Great Britain. He was I think he was the Churchill of the time. He was the prime minister, I think.
Yeah, Neville Chamberlain, you mean. Neville Chamberlain, yes.
Yeah. But he came back and he said, Hitler promised them now that we ceded Czechoslovakia to him, that there'll be peace for all time, no more wars. And the very next thing he did, it broke his heart. He felt that he did something good, and it was a good try. I don't blame him for that. He tried to make peace before a war. So we could have told Putin, okay, we won't invite Ukraine into NATO. It's not like we needed them. Ukraine wanted to be part of it because they wanted our protection too. So, but if you break that, a la Chamberlain, then we will be in war against you on the side of Ukraine. We're giving you the chance not to go off to war. And that's diplomacy. That's the way you hope to end all this ongoing wars. You tell me, maybe I'm too dumb. What were we doing in a war against Korea or against Afghanistan or against Vietnam? All these wars. What we should have the Monroe Doctrine, follow the Monroe Doctrine, which said the United States should only be involved in battles that involve our vital interests, primarily North America and Central America, not go off to all throughout the world. And because of and Eisenhower was brilliant. Eisenhower, you'd think he was the most belligerent. And when he got through, every president at the end of their 4 years or 8 years says makes speeches, what a great job he did, what a great country he built, and so Eisenhower took the pains to warn us that the
military-industrial complex
military-industrial
complex, yeah,
complex was our greatest
enemy,
potential danger. And turns out he's right, because
you're right, Morty.
Can't vote against and no matter what you say about the Palestinian kids can't be friendly with the Israeli kids, that's because they've been brainwashed. But they could be. And there's instances where they are. They're at camps together and so forth. So young people could be friendly with each other. Anyway, I don't want to go.
So, Leonard, are you going to lead us in the charge here on these questions?
No, but I want to say one way to be happy is it's all up to you. Make up your mind you're going to be happy, just like Brett Kingstone does. He comes on every time with a happy face. Get together with your kids.
I'm nuts, Morty, not because I'm happy. That's because I'm crazy. But now that I'm rich, I'm eccentric. Okay.
then do what Brett Kingstone did.
Be crazy.
When your kids are seem depressed, call them all together and say, let's all smile, let's all laugh, let's have fun. Let's be wild. Let's have some ice cream. Let's have some. Let's play some games. Let's do some fun things. Let's go out and enjoy nature. It's all within your control, and yet our human nature is we immerse ourselves in our negative experiences. We for some reason all we do is, if somebody loses a child, that's terrible, and often the mother or the father winds up alcoholic or in a mental institution or worse, suicidal. And others even take an experience like that and make it a positive. They do cancer research funding, start an organization in the name of that child. Every year they get together with friends, with organizations. So the thing is to take negatives and make them positives. And I'm telling you, if you say, let's be happy, have fun, don't worry, be happy, don't worry. And then in the 30s, back in the 1930s, Americans practiced, what is it called? When you repeat the thing over and over again.
Mantra? Mantras? Yeah, when you're meditating. Mantras, yeah.
So they had a mantra. Every day they got up and they told their kids to do that too. They said, every day in every way I feel better and better and better. Every day in every way I feel better and better. And you know something? It helped them, because it's most illnesses that we suffer from are psychosomatical. They come from negative thinking, from focusing on the negatives. So be happy, don't worry, and do what they did in the 30s. Every day in every way, I feel better and better and better. And do that, and you will. And make your kids do that, and give everybody love. The wonderful thing about a smile is you can give it away, and you don't lose anything by it. You enhance your own being. It's much like light. If you're in the library and you share your light with another student or another person that's doing research, doesn't take anything away from you. You still have the same light. So good things are like light. You can share them. And when you come on with your smile, Brett, I'm delighted to have you on because you proved the point. So whether it's because you're crazy or not crazy, I'd like all my cohorts on this podcast to become crazy like you.
I'm
Smile.
too crazy to become sad, Morty. It's not in my DNA. I'm
Or
too
when
crazy to know I should be anything else other than happy. What can I tell you?
you smile even when you disagree with me, or even when you're disagreeable. It's delightful, So keep up the good work.
So let's start our fight, Morty. Let's Leonard ask the questions. Let's
Okay,
start our
Len.
fight, okay?
All right, so
Let's stay with the current events.
we'll start off
Amen.
with a big picture question. We'll let Mr. Kingstone have the first response to this.
Thank you.
Does Joe Biden have the stamina to be president for a second term?
Absolutely not. He is
I don't think
completely mentally incapable and
Brett
incompetent,
doesn't think he
not
has
only
the
for a second term. Morty, I'm on now. I get to talk. I love you, Morty, but don't talk over me. He does not only not have the stamina for a second term, he doesn't have the stamina, the intellect, or the capacity to be president. He needs to step down now. He can't, if he serves out his next 5 or 6 months, we're going to be in big trouble. Can you imagine a guy who can't even put 2 sentences together on stage and loses his trend of thought halfway through a sentence, being woken up at 2 in the morning? Mr. President, the Chinese have just shot a nuclear weapon at San Francisco. I have the football here. We have to make a decision. The guy can't even think clearly when he's allegedly awake and standing in front of the podium at 2 in the morning. If we're attacked by our adversaries, he doesn't know what the hell to do. We do not have a commander in chief. He is mentally AWOL.
Let me ask you something.
Yes.
So are you in favor of Biden resigning and Kamala Harris taking?
No, I think she should not. She should step down too with him. The two of them ought to go at the same time, and that leaves you with the head of the Congress, who's third in command. Okay, who I think is a very level-headed guy. He's from Louisiana. He's conservative.
Johnson.
Mike Johnson. He doesn't agree with the far right part of the Republican Party. They're always fighting with him, and he doesn't agree with the far left of the Democratic Party. Honestly, Kamala is. You spoke to my Italian friends. We had one event, Yana and Alberto Kellner. Kanya and I were at their homes in both Monte Carlo and Milan. We spent 3 weeks with them. Everywhere they went, they said, Brett, the only thing worse than your addle-minded president is that laughing jackass Kamala. They all think she's a joke. Now, just now at the G7 conference, Morty, you saw with your own eyes, President Meloni of Italy had to run after Biden from wandering away from the group and bring him back. And then recently, President Obama had to take his hand and walk him off the stage at one of his fundraisers.
See, they like him. They run after him and to bring him.
You at 92 have more energy, more mental faculties, more zest for life than Biden has in his best day at 81. Okay?
Brett, thank you for giving me 3 years.
If you were running the cut, you're 95?
Just January, I celebrated the 65th anniversary of my 30th birthday.
Mazel tov. Well, listen, you're in great shape.
Morty,
I would even vote for you for president.
I'm going to use your statement as proof that I'm a younger man.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Listen, Morty, like I told you, my girlfriends always tell me they're just using me to get to you, Morty, okay? I can't introduce them to you anymore. They don't want to talk to me anymore.
I want to tell you something.
Okay.
When I heard the debate start and Biden get on and mumble what he mumbled,
Oh, God.
I said, there's no way that he could be president, or, we could
No.
entrust him, because
He shouldn't be in office now, Morty.
maybe,
He's not
maybe,
capable.
maybe
Yeah.
12 hours or 14 hours a day function, but you can't turn it over to a guy who can't prepare a sentence. It was
Yeah.
the worst I ever heard. But
Agreed.
but today his people came out and said that he's really good at what he does.
But CNN doesn't believe it. I was just watching CNN. They all don't believe it anymore.
No, let me tell you what they do say, which is,
Please.
they said he's great from 8 a.m. in the morning to 4 p.m.
Actually, it was 10 to 4. He's great from 10 to 4, and then afterwards, God knows. So if at 9 o'clock at night he can't put a sentence together, what happens at 2 in the morning if we're at war and he has to make a very fateful decision? There's no way, Morty.
But I disagree with you, because I think he's done a fair to middling job during his.
Okay, so finally we get to disagree, Morty. Disagree. Now I think the guy is the worst president we've ever had in history. He makes Carter look like a genius, like Rabbi Gadol. He like the best rabbi of Israel. He makes him look wise.
Why is he the worst president?
Because look what happened. We have the worst border in the history of our country. Over 10 million illegal immigrants pouring through our country that, by the way, Morty, are murdering our citizens. We lost a beautiful 12-year-old girl in Texas, murdered by two of these rapist, murdering Venezuelans that came in here illegally. We lost a woman in Maryland, dead, a mother of 5.
No, you're not being fair, because the statistics say that the immigrants that come across the border do much less crime than the people that we have here.
Morty, we're putting them up in $400 a night hotel rooms like the Hotel Roosevelt in Times Square. We're paying their health care. We're paying their expenses. We're giving a credit. We're destroying our economy. He destroyed our economy. He gave us record bad inflation. Our border is terrible.
Destroying our
foreign policy is terrible. So, Morty, your answer to your question, everything he's done is wrong.
Our economy was never better. Employment was never fuller.
Morty, can I quote Barack Obama? Can I quote Barack Obama right now? Let me quote, forget me for a minute, because I'm crazy, and you know that. Let me quote Barack Obama. Barack Obama's exact quote, and be ready to bleep me, Leonard, is never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to fuck things up. His exact quote. This guy has been wrong on every issue. He tried to convince Obama not to take out Osama bin Laden. He was the only one who voted against taking out Osama bin Laden, and he was wrong. What he did in Afghanistan, Morty, you know I'm chairman of the U.S. Navy SEAL Legacy Foundation.
Let me
Please.
For 1 minute.
Please.
I never heard that. I don't know if it's true or not.
He said it. You can look it up on the internet. It's confirmed by the New York Times and every news network.
A lot of things are
every news network
to Biden that he never said. But if he said that,
he did.
It wasn't nearly as bad as what George Bush did by going to Afghanistan, because
big mistake. I agree with you on that.
Because it was in response.
The war in Iraq and Afghanistan, both Iraq and Afghanistan, was wrong.
Somebody blowing up a building, 2 buildings with 3,000. You go after Osama bin Laden.
Yes.
But you don't go after a country.
And by the way, Obama did go after Osama bin Laden, and it's on record that Biden was the only one who disagreed with him. Even Hillary Clinton said, we have to go in and take him out. So all I'm telling you is Biden has been wrong on every issue, from the pullout of Afghanistan to our foreign policy to our southern border to the worst inflation we've seen in 40 years. And by the way, Morty, I'm sorry. For most Americans, the economy is not good. Average Americans can't buy eggs, can't buy food because they're 3 times what they were before his administration started. Morty. Average Americans are hurting now.
That's because
you got to know that, Morty.
That's because of Trump. Trump doesn't understand economics. even most great economics.
Most people polled said life and their finances were better under Trump than Biden. And by the way, Morty, I was the only white guy on my wrestling team. All my black brothers that I were on the team with, all of them are telling me they're voting for Trump now. You should see the number of black podcasters that are on TV saying, we're leaving the plantation called the Democratic Party. We're not taking this BS anymore. They're trying to keep us down. Under Trump, we were much better off. And you know something? These people were lifelong Democrats, and they're voting for Trump now. Did you see the reception he got in the South Bronx? Did you see the reception Trump got in Harlem? I'm telling you, Trump's going to take a huge percentage of the African American and the Hispanic vote. He's going to win. And Biden's performance basically sealed the deal. And the Democratic Party, I think they're dishonest, but they're not stupid. They're smart enough to know they have to replace Biden. And even CNN is saying that now.
Let's talk about the election. You mentioned said he's going to win.
Okay.
One of the questions that the moderators asked President Trump was, would he accept the results of the 2024 election?
Who's the question for?
I'll ask Brett, and then Morty can respond. But he first didn't answer that. It took I think 3 tries by the moderator to get an answer.
Correct. An answer that the moderator wanted, of course. But go ahead.
No, I mean it was the answer that Trump gave. He didn't give any answer until the 3rd try, in which he said yes if it's fair and legal.
That's what he said. You're right.
So I guess the question is, was the 2020 election fair and legal?
So I could tell you that Trump was just prosecuted and made a convicted felon because he did something in Biden's eyes and the Democrats' eyes weren't fair and legal in paying off a porn star not to go public to embarrass him and his family for something he may or may not have done. And meanwhile, Joe Biden goes on national TV and Anthony Blinken, his errand boy, solicits 51 top CIA, FBI, and Secret Service former directors to sign a statement saying that the Hunter Biden laptop that was 100 times more incriminating than anything Trump might have or might not have done with that porn star was a Russian disinformation, a fake and false. And we now know that, in fact, it wasn't fake or false because it was entered as evidence by Biden's own Justice. Hold on. Biden's own, stay with me, Justice Department in the trial that convicted Hunter Biden of felonies himself. So what I'm saying to you is, do I think 2020 by definition was a fair election? No, because Biden lied like hell to the American people. He also lied that his sole reason for running is that President Trump referred to neo-Nazis as very fine people. I heard that speech. It's been replayed several times. And what he said was that they weren't fine people. So it was not a fair election. Definitely not.
So
how do you know that?
Right. I mean, Bill Barr.
These are facts.
That brought it to 62 courts, many of which were the judges were appointed by Trump. And not one of them came back and said there was the slightest iota that there was anything done wrong.
And Trump had 62 plus legal scholars saying that there was no basis to convict him of these charges in the state of New York, and this eventually will be won in appeal. And guess what? He still got convicted. I must tell you something. This was the greatest fraud. Listen, there are videotapes of dozens of people in major cities dumping ballots in the ballot boxes, dragging them out from under the tables and counting them after voting hours.
Bull.
They
BS.
have videos of people
BS.
in cars
BS.
following ballot collectors saying they go to nursing homes to collect the ballots, have
BS.
the old people sign the ballots, and then they put them in a voting box.
BS. There's
It's on
no
TV.
there's no
How can
evidence.
your eyes you think your eyes are deceiving you?
Your eyes are deceiving you.
Not at all.
Did you see the January 6th? What
I did.
was
And next to what happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with the riots there in Portland, it was an orderly procession. Not one building was burned. Not one painting was teared off the wall. Not one statue was
what
thrown down.
what
And
has
guess what?
what has
None of
that
the
got to
people
do
who
with
set buildings on fire in
what
those
has that got to
riots
do with
for
January 6th?
George Floyd got arrested, but all
What
these Republicans did.
what has that got to do with January 6th? I saw it with my own eyes.
I
They,
saw it with my own eyes too. And you
they,
know what? It was an
they were
orderly
hollering,
protest. Nobody, the only
hollering,
person got shot was
they were
one of the protesters.
hollering, kill Pence. They were there. It's a miracle that congressmen or senators weren't killed. A couple of Washington policemen got killed.
Compared to what I saw of the buildings in the cities being burned down in Portland, Oregon, and Washington, D.C., in Minneapolis, Minnesota, this was like a kindergarten parade, Morty. And why is justice not equally applied to people who literally burn down cities and shoot and throw rocks and Molotov cocktails at our police officers when those people came through? Not one painting was torn down, not one statue was torn down. No, it was nothing compared to all these left-wing Democratic protests that wound up torching many
But
cities. And by the way, burning down
it was,
businesses
it was,
and homes. It's disgraceful.
it was a tangible evidence. What am I looking for? The word.
Tangible evidence of guilt, are you saying?
No, of trying to turn over the government.
Overturn an election, you're saying. Correct? Right. All I can say to you is he left the White House.
It's treason.
Democracy is still here.
Treason.
Democracy was not taken or stolen from this country. And I remember him saying, make sure your protest is peaceful. He said it 3 times during his speech. And not only that, my friend, he told Nancy Pelosi he would give her 10,000 National Guard, and even her own daughter, Nancy Pelosi's daughter, posted a video where Nancy Pelosi admitted it was my responsibility, was my mistake. I didn't want the sight, the optics of 10,000 National Guard around the Congress. I didn't authorize it, even though Trump gave me that opportunity. So I'm sorry. If you really felt that Trump was out to overthrow the government, why would he have, as Nancy Pelosi admitted, offered 10,000 National Guard to protect and keep those protesters from even entering the Congress? I'm telling you, there's a lot more to this, Morty. And by the way, do I think either side is perfect? No. But the narrative of the Democratic Party is absolutely false.
What did he keep? Who did he keep from doing what?
He offered Nancy Pelosi 10,000 National Guardsmen to protect the Congress so there wouldn't be riots. And she refused because she thought it would look too militarily offensive to many of her constituents. And she admitted this on a videotape. There's a video of her speaking to her daughter who was interviewing her for a movie she was making. And she says, you know what? I declined to take those National Guardsmen. It was my mistake. I take responsibility.
Look,
So if Trump was really willing to overthrow the government, why would he offer 10,000 National Guardsmen to keep those people away from the building before it even happened?
Why didn't he call out the National Guard? Why did he only offer it to Nancy Pelosi?
Because that stupid imbecile they call a mayor in Washington, D.C., who doesn't have even 2 rocks in her head, let alone a brain, refused it. She's the same woman that when people get carjacked and murdered, the people get off on bail with their left-wing Soros-funded DAs. The same DAs that let people who illegal immigrants beat up cops and they're out on the street the next day. They don't want law enforcement, Morty. The left wing of the Democratic Party is Defund the police and anti-law enforcement. That is the answer.
Listen, you showed me what you believe in. I find that interesting. That what recommends Trump to you is the African American wrestlers on your
My wrestling team.
Yeah.
All of them. They're all voting for him.
That's who shows us you're who you vote for.
Yeah. I love you know something? My black brothers from high school got more common sense in their finger than these kids from Harvard and Columbia protesting for Moss do in their whole brain and body. I trust their opinion better than all these Harvard, Yale, and Columbia kids and NYU kids who are out there protesting for Hamas.
I'm not talking about
Jews.
Harvard. I agree with you, but
they're morons.
But the recommendation for Trump should be that we should vote for Trump because a bunch of African American wrestlers are switching to Trump.
You know what? They're a lot smarter than most of the white people who go to Harvard and Yale. And you know what? I trust their opinion in terms of common sense. And you know what? When they interviewed kids in Harlem and asked African Americans, can a man have a baby? They go, hell no, that never can happen. But they go to Columbia University and the girls saying, of course men can have a baby. Do you know one man who ever had a baby? No, but they can have a baby. Who's got more common sense, Morty? Who's got more common sense?
Well, let's move away from common sense and toward actual policy.
Please.
A few of the policies that President Trump alluded to, if reelected, that he would endeavor to enact.
Drill, baby, drill.
That's one. Rolling back regulations, adding tariffs on imports, and lowering taxes for individuals and for corporations. What's your feeling on those specifics?
The Supreme Court yesterday passed something against what was it?
Against what?
Against no, it was a specific person. I forget.
Well, the three rulings from the Supreme Court yesterday were all favorable to Trump, just so you know.
Totally.
Right. But let me tell you, quick answer, Leonard, yes to all of those. Yes to all of those. I agree.
Let me finish
Good.
What I was talking about.
Please.
What they did is they eliminated the ability to regulate by all the agencies. The United
Correct.
States.
The Chevron, they set aside Chevron.
That was the Chevron
case. They set aside the Chevron case. Now agencies can't dictate policy, only Congress can. Correct.
What do you mean Congress can't? Congress don't know which side is up.
I agree with you on that, Morty.
The agencies have expertise in environment and water.
You can't have people who are not elected dictate policy to the United States.
No.
That's the deep state, my friend.
The Congress chooses them. You can't have morons that just couldn't figure out how to sell their commitments to the country.
Morty, the government's full of morons. I got news for you. If somebody didn't send you that memo, I think the whole government's full of morons on every level, from the agencies to Congress to specifically now the president of the United States, who's too stupid to even be called a moron because he's not mentally present. So, look, we got a big problem, Morty. I agree with you on that point.
Got a big problem because it's the end of democracy.
Yeah. I don't think it's the end of democracy. I think it's the end of democracy when you have a nation that persecutes their political opponents by suing them and trying to jail them. We're becoming a third world country in the United States. That's what I expect out of Cuba, the Soviet Union, North Korea, and Venezuela, not the United States. We lose democracy when you have a president prosecuting his political opponent with lawfare and weaponizing the justice system. That's why we don't have a democracy right now, not because of what happened on January 6th.
Look, Len and I happen to have a personal relationship that showed us what kind of people Trump surrounds himself with. I never met a worse guy in all the years I dealt with people than Steve Bannon. The worst. The
Mm-hmm.
worst. He was the days before January 6th. He said, watch January 6th. There's going to be some party there. Everybody knew it.
And you don't think the transvestite that Trump put in charge of our health department, Rachel Levine, is incompetent? Or the assistant secretary
I'm not talking about it.
of energy who was stealing women's clothing off of airport
I'm not,
carousels at
I'm not,
airports is
I'm not,
terrible?
I'm not talking about incompetence. I'm
Yeah.
talking about vicious.
At least we agree on their incompetence. Thank you.
Steve Bannon collected hundreds of millions of dollars as group to build a wall. And they kept it all. They're corrupt.
What about Tim Scott? Do you think that fine African-American, God-fearing gentleman is a bad person? Senator Tim Scott, who's most likely going to be his vice president. Do you think Tim Scott's a bad man?
Yes.
I don't. I think he's one of the most godly and wonderful people
Okay, so
in Congress.
let me tell you why I think he's a bad man.
Tell me.
They asked him, would you back whoever the electorate votes for president? And he said, I would back, yes, I would back him because I know it's going to be Trump. And they asked him again, but if it's not Trump, and he says, I don't want to deal with hypotheticals because Trump is going to be. So,
And by the way, am I a bad person? Because I agree with that statement. I would have said the same thing. Am I a bad person, Morty?
Absolutely. And
I'm a bad person.
Very bad.
I'm very bad. Okay.
That's against democracy. How could you be against we've operated for 200 years with whoever. Look, the Republicans stole the presidency from Gore and Lieberman. Stole it because they had a majority of the Supreme Court, and Gore and Lieberman turned it over without making a big deal. They could have kept fighting it in the courts and so forth, because that's the nature of this country.
All right. So your opinion is they stole that election. My opinion is they stole this election and are going to try to steal this election with a puppet president who's an empty suit, who's being used as a puppet by other people. Honestly, the most dishonest thing in the world is running a candidate that they knew beforehand was mentally deficient, not capable of doing the job. This is a disgrace they perpetrated on the American people.
Deficient, and I think he's been a great president.
You think he's what?
He's been a great president.
And you think he's mentally deficient now, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your honesty. I appreciate it.
The minute he opened up his mouth at the debate, I said, you can't have this guy. I don't want to have.
I couldn't agree with you more, Morty. You're right.
Let's take it from
Next
that.
question, Leonard.
Yeah, I mean, if we're at a point where current competence, let's forget about past competence and achievements and things that have happened, but going forward, I guess the first question, should the two debate again? Who would benefit from that second debate? Should they debate again? And then if not, or if Biden withdraws, as you suggest he should, do you think there's a Democrat they could substitute who could actually beat Trump?
I could tell you this. Having another debate is a fool's errand. Nothing good will come for it. And I don't want to see this country dragged down. But maybe it has to happen in order for Biden to finally be removed from office.
I don't try. There's nothing that Trump could benefit from another debate.
Nothing that Biden could either. I agree with you, Morty. It's a fool's errand. No one will benefit.
He accomplished the maximum that he could accomplish with the.
You're right. So guess what? Another bolt of lightning from outer space. Morty and I have agreed on fourth time now. This is wonderful. Okay.
No,
Uh,
but if we don't agree on something as basic as whoever gets elected
right.
should, what do you call it? The White House should be turned over, the presidency should be turned over to that person, then you're
As it has been for the past
endorsing,
250 years, Morty.
what's the word? Ins, ins,
Insurrection.
insurrection, right?
Yeah. Well, Morty, you know I'm a little Meshuggah. I've got 200 weapons in my vault downstairs. I got 40,000 rounds of ammunition. I got 2 years of freeze-dried food and my own water well supply here on my ranch in Colorado. So, yeah, I'm a little nuts, okay? But at least I admit it, okay? Leonard, to answer your other question, who do I think will run? Gavin Newsom. And I think his vice president will be Whitmer from Michigan. That's what I think is going to happen. Gavin Newsom, listen, I don't agree with a word that comes out of his mouth, but I have to admit he's an incredibly accomplished speaker. He speaks the party line. He looks good on television, and he's going to be the one, and he's been waiting in the wings for this to happen. They've been prepping him.
What's the outcome of the election?
I think Trump wins. You know why? Because I think even Democrats, mostly the moderate Democrats, realize the fraud that was perpetrated on them by their party, that they put up a puppet that they knew was not mentally capable for the job and put this nation in jeopardy just to hold power. And I think that Trump's going to win from a landslide, no matter who gets put up. Mark my words, you got me on video. He's going to have a victory similar to Ronald Reagan's victory when he got elected president, and it's going to be a landslide.
I think one of the best things, and the stupidest things that Biden turned out did was the best thing he did was leaving Afghanistan. The stupidest thing he did was not raving about it every single day since then. That I took our troops.
Afghanistan was a disaster. He left behind hundreds of American citizens. It was a disaster.
It doesn't matter what he left behind. It's what he saved going forward.
He left behind $80 billion in weapons to our enemies, Morty.
We love that. That's more production of weapons for the United States.
It's terrible. I don't agree. I think you're being facetious, Morty.
I'm not. We don't need the weapons. We produce the next day. We produce another 80 million.
You don't put them in the hands of people that want to cut the heads off our people. You don't do that. You don't leave them in the hands of murderers, Morty.
They're not attacking America.
Not now, but they will be.
They're not. They won't.
By the way, Morty, you know where a lot of those weapons wound up?
They didn't.
They wound up in the hands of Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. The Taliban sold most of those weapons to raise money for their administration. And who did they sell them to? People who were murdering Jewish settlers and civilians along the Gaza border. Okay? It was a bad thing that he did, leaving those weapons behind.
Doesn't bother me at all. I'm so glad he got out, but from day one, he should have made that look at what I did. I got us out of. We've been in wars forever.
The biggest disaster in military history was his withdrawal from Afghanistan. They'll be teaching that at West Point and Annapolis as a case study in how not to exit a country after a war. It was a disaster. And 13 of our Marines died in that process.
In all those places, they're just saying they should teach this. All they want to teach is how to stay on and kill more people. That's it.
Well, Morty, unfortunately, if God forbid we have to have another war, and I hope we don't, that's the process of what you need to military. You don't teach them an LGBTQ etiquette and give them pronouns. You have to teach them to kill the enemy. Because the only way to win a war, Morty, and you know my father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather fought in 2 world wars, okay, is to kill the enemy. And thank God we killed the Nazis, or else you and I would not be here talking. There would be no Jews left on this planet.
Yes, I agree with you. When we get attacked, we've never been attacked. The United States to this day has never been attacked.
No, we've been attacked on 9/11, Morty. We were. That was an
We're not.
attack on our
We're
soil.
not. 3,000 people got killed. Nine
That's an
guys.
attack, Morty. That's an attack.
That's not an attack.
It's no less an attack than October
That's not
7th
an
in
attack.
Israel.
Don't go to war against the country because 10 Muslims or
Terrorists. Terrorists.
Yeah, that's what the confusion is with.
We should have bombed Afghanistan. We should have not invaded it. That's the point I think you're trying to make. Retribution, but not a full-fledged war, and have thousands of our young men and women come home missing arms and legs and sitting in wheelchairs. On that, I agree with you.
Blood the treasury lost in Afghanistan.
It was terrible.
For
It
what?
was terrible. Morty, I used to go to Gold's Gym in Orlando, Florida. Now I'm here on my ranch. I have my own gym in my house. But I have to tell you, you don't know how many people were standing next to me lifting barbells with prosthetic legs and little claws for hands and arms, prosthetic arms. What a shame. And they were in their 20s and early 30s. And I could just imagine what they went through when they lost their arms and legs. That's why I became co-chairman of the Navy SEAL Legacy Foundation.
Shouldn't we stop that? Shouldn't we
What?
end it? Shouldn't we end
I
that?
agree, we should. War is not a good policy for any
Not only
country.
that, we never count the total cost of the war because only maybe 6 years ago, the last of the veterans of the Second World War that were in
Died. Yeah.
were in military hospitals. That cost over the years was millions and millions and hundreds of millions and billions. It's not just what gets killed right away, but the people that get maimed and that we have to take care of.
And the incalculable cost, which you cannot even put a number on, to the families who lose their loved ones or have to basically all full-time babysit people who are permanently crippled and bedridden. It's terrible. Listen, as we both agreed, war is only the result of failed diplomacy. And I'm sorry, but if that schmuck Biden would have met with Putin and cut a deal, we would never have had the Ukraine war that we spent $200 billion on. That's where the failure of his administration took place.
I don't want to disagree on that because I thought we should have tried diplomacy.
Negotiated it. I agree with you, Morty. Hey, look, we've agreed almost 10 times.
That's a good time to end on a high note where the two of you actually agree on something. So
great. Morty, I love you. You are the best venture capitalist on the planet. You've done amazing things for this country. My company, Supervision, you created thousands of jobs by funding us, letting us grow, and ultimately
you did it. I was
great. Morty, it never would have happened if it wasn't for you and Leonard Katz. Never would have happened.
I was just smart enough to bet on a good jockey.
You made it happen, Morty, and I love you. You're the greatest.
But that doesn't mean that in terms of your views of the United States, capitalism, democracy.
Somebody's got to give you a run for your money, Morty. It creates excitement when we argue, Morty. Somebody's got to take the opposite position of you.
Not only that, I told you convey happiness. Even when you're the audience contested, all my audience could testify to that. That even when you're arguing, even when you're beating up on me, even when you're the most disagreeable, you're smiling, you're laughing. That's the right attitude. That's the way the world should be. That's the way the UN should be. Instead of backing Hamas and
yeah, crazy. We live in a crazy world, Morty, but that book that's right in front of you says it all. If we figured out how to make everybody happy, we wouldn't have arguments and we wouldn't have wars. The world would be a better place. So if you ever run for either president of the country, president of the United Nations, or world leader, you've got my vote.
got one vote. I got to build on that.
Zygazun, Marty.
Anyway, it was great having you on.
Same here.
I love you, and I'm
I love you too, Morty. You're the best.
very proud of what you've done. You do good mitzvahs. You're great.
Well, you made it happen, Morty, and you made great mitzvahs in your life, and you've a lot to show for it. And the beautiful grandchildren you have, unbelievable. Really,
You
you're the richest in the grandchildren of anyone I know. Okay.
Sure, I'm not the richest. I used to be rich. Then I had a lot of grandchildren. I'm quite
You're the best, Morty. I love you, brother. Be well.
God bless.
Okay. Bye bye.
Everybody, all my listeners, all my cohorts, thanks for being on with us this Wednesday, 6:30. I hope to see you 6:30 again next Wednesday evening, and hopefully we'll have an exciting a guest as Brett Kingstone, and together we can enjoy whatever part of the news we find. If nothing else, I have to admit Trump is entertaining because I never was so intrigued that every morning when I get up, there's always new news, whether it's the Supreme Court or the trials or the attacks on people. It's unbelievable. Uh, Trump was not shy about attacking the judges, and the judges. He gave out the judges' daughter's phone number and address. We live in a wild world, and not only that, but Trump is richer today by far than he ever was. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
That the
Truth Social. He made billions on Truth Social, Morty. You're right.
It's worth, his shares are worth $5 billion, and they thought it would be only temporary. But now with each victory, and yesterday, I don't know if you noticed, he got a contract to build the Trump Tower in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. No, the guy is amazing, and Morty, I really hope that if he does get elected, the Democrats will at least benefit from some of his really creative entrepreneurial genius, and we stop fighting with each other, and we all focus on doing things positive for the United States. And, if we can harness his chutzpah for positive, for positive benefits, he could do a lot for this nation. And I'll give you an example, Morty. Wallman Rink in New York.
I hope you're right, but I can't believe it.
Look at Wallman Rink in New York. He built the ice rink when the city couldn't. They tried for 3 years. Maybe he can do things like that for America. God willing. Alavai.
It was a guest of honor in an organization that Eisenhower organized and started. What was it? No, Freedom Foundation. But what is what? Valley Forge.
Valley Forge. Yeah.
Valley Forge. So they honored the Freedom Foundation. I was on the board of trustees. They asked me to come down to Philadelphia because Donald Trump was going to be the guest of honor. So I said, sure, I'll do it, I came down, I spoke so fondly of him, that he's a genius, that he's building the greatest things in the world, throughout the world. I've mentioned the Wallman Rink, a bunch of others attacked it. He did it 1, 2, 3.
He did.
So I praised him. He appreciated it so much.
Morty, you were like that trick horse.
He was so appreciative. Every time he introduced me to anybody on Wall Street or in business, he said, Morty Davis, the greatest guy in the world, the top Wall Street guy.
You see, so Trump was right for once, for God's sake. You got to give him credit.
Longer again.
He knew that. Morty, maybe he's right a couple of other times, but he certainly was right then.
I loved him till he changed. You have to remember how
till he became a Republican, Morty. Let's be honest, okay?
Yeah. He was a big backer of Hillary. He was a big backer of Bill Clinton. Yeah. He was pro-choice. He was for a lot of things that.
Yeah, and then he became a Republican and he spoiled the parade. I understand. Morty, you need to be president. I'll vote for you. Even though I don't agree with you all the time, you've got a great heart and you want the right things for everyone. So you'll get my vote.
Listen, at my stage, I told you I don't even buy green bananas.
You can't wait till they get ripened.
I can't guarantee I'll be here for the election, even much less to serve 4 years.
All right, no problem. I got the solution. I'm going to send you a bunch of stripper poles and a few strippers, and I'll make sure you're awake when they send them. Okay?
You want to be sure to kill me.
You'll die happy at least, and you won't need anesthesia. I love you, Morty. Goodbye.
I
I got to
love
get rid
you,
of
and I
these.
love all my listeners. And have a great week. Have a great every day of your life. Each day should be better than the day before. God bless you.
Alibi.
Hope to be with you next week. Take care.
Bye bye.
God bless you. Bye.